Mr. Steve Berg is the Vice President for Programs and Policy of the National Alliance to End Homelessness. Prior to coming to Washington, Mr. Berg spent 14 years as a legal service attorney. Mr. Berg will speak to us today about what the research on runaway and homeless youth tells us.
I'd like to just start by saying thank you for holding this hearing. I know every person who's on this panel has done specific things to move this issue forward, move the issue of homelessness forward, and we're grateful for that and for what so many other members of Congress have done. I'm here to talk a little bit about some of the research and numbers about this problem. We've submitted our written testimony, which I think I would refer people to. Part of that is a bibliography, which makes a pretty good reading list for people who want to dip into the issue even further. Let me just make a few quick points here by way of summary. The first point, there's a couple of pieces of bad news and a couple of pieces of good news. The first piece of bad news is this is a sizable problem. I mean, the number you recited, 1.6 million people, young people every year. This does not include people who are staying with relatives or staying with friends. It is young people who are in shelters, who are on the streets, or who are staying temporarily with strangers in often dire circumstances. A striking finding of the research is that for more than half of these young people, no one was looking for them while they were going through this experience. There was not people making police reports or posting things. They were on their own, in many cases abandoned by families or what supports they had. And the other thing is substantially fewer than half were in shelters during these experiences. The rest, a small number of the 1.6 was living with strangers. For the most part, young people were surviving on the streets, they were surviving in abandoned buildings, they were surviving outside. The second piece of bad but mixed news is that many of the young people who have these experiences, there are mixed and complex and difficult histories. Severe conflict within the family is a near universal experience. Also prevalent are issues of abuse and neglect, issues of abandonment, issues of substance abuse, more often with the parents than with young people. Issues of mental health and poverty is a common occurrence. The involvement with the juvenile justice system is very common. The involvement with the child welfare system is very common. These add up to the fact that prevention of homelessness for young people is, well, extremely important, and the research shows doable, is difficult. The good news, and I think I hope you take this from the hearing and the witnesses that have preceded me, is that young people are resilient. They go through these experiences, but the research shows what many people who work in the field know from experience, which is that despite incredible hardship and incredible experiences, people, when they're given the chance, do recover from the trauma and do go on to lead very useful and indeed, in many cases, exemplary lives. The other piece of good news is we have a pretty clear idea of what the interventions are that bring about those good results. We could always have more on this, and one of the probably areas where there's more research needed is sort of individual rigorous evaluations of individual program models. But from the research that exists, we see that a stable residence, a connection and attachment to a caring adult, and the supportive services that build on the strengths of these young people and that address the problems they have, get good results. So we sort of programmatically we're aware of the answers and we can put them into place. The final point I'd like to make, and the research bears this out, is the urgency of this question. I think sometimes in this day and age we're all a little too used to the idea of homelessness and have lost to some extent the idea that homelessness for anyone is an immediate and crucial problem that needs to be dealt with as a crisis, an individual emergency in each case. And I think certainly for young people, this is the case. I think the stories you hear will back this up. What I can say about the research is the longer young people stay homeless, the worse their troubles get. Every night is an additional risk of drug abuse and addiction, of being the victims of crime or of turning to crime, of sexual abuse, of physical abuse. Every night that young people stay homeless increases the risk of deteriorating mental health conditions, higher risks of suicide the longer people stay homeless. These are young people who are in grave danger. But on the other hand, every night, young people are moved from the streets into programs that prevent those dire consequences from happening. We know what the programs are. We have good federal policies in place. We'll be working with the committee staff to make them even better through reauthorization, but the main point is we need to get behind these programs and make sure they're funded and available to everyone. Thank you.